The NTSB has just released their initial findings of the New York City helicopter crash, and the contents are interesting. On April 10th, a Bell 206 sightseeing helicopter carrying 5 passengers seemingly fell from the sky. The video and circumstances around the crash had everybody asking what caused this. First and foremost, the NTSB noted that the helicopter broke up into 3 main parts. First was the fuselage, which also included the engine. Second was the main rotor blades, including the transmission and part of the roof beam structure. Lastly was the tail boom, including the tail rotor. Many had inferred those details from the footage, but the NTSB confirmed that. The NTSB also noted that they recovered no recording devices, whether video or data. Helicopters like this are not required to carry black boxes like commercial airliners. However, they did note that the pilot was wearing sunglasses that had the capability to record audio and video. These would most likely be the popular Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses that don't record continuously. However, they were not able to recover these from the crash. The pilot had logged around 800 hours, with around 50 of those in these Bell 206 helicopters. That means the pilot was reasonably experienced and current with his flight hours. The helicopter, on the other hand, is a bit of a different story. It was built in 2004, and at the time of the accident, it had accrued 13,000 hours. That amounts to just over 600 hours per year. The engine installed on this helicopter had even more hours, accruing 23,000. Turbine engines like the one used in the Bell 206 are very reliable, and it's not uncommon to see those engines outlast their airframe. To reach these astronomical airframe hours, helicopters like this are required to be on progressive maintenance plans. This means at certain intervals, various components get inspected, such as the engine or the airframe. In February, it had just completed a 300 and 100 hour inspection interval. Since that inspection, it had only flown a further 50 hours. With the airframe having that many hours, it begs the question, was there some kind of mechanical failure? We're going to discuss that a little bit more in a moment. The next interesting details from the high-resolution ADS-B information obtained by the NTSB. In the final moments before the crash, they found that the helicopter was flying at around 650 to 625 feet. At the point of breakup, they found that the helicopter increased altitude to 675 feet. That's 50 feet above where it was flying. That's an interesting data point, so let's put another pin in that. The final interesting detail was the weather. In my initial video, I pulled the weather information from Juliet Romeo Alpha, which is situated right across the river. That station was reporting very light winds. However, all the other reporting stations, including Juliet Romeo Bravo, were reporting much stronger and gusting winds. At the time, they reported 10 knots gusting 18 at 150 degrees. That means the wind would have been a strong crosswind. Before we discuss these other details in depth, I first want to talk about the Jesus nut. There were a lot of comments on my last video asking if it was the fabled Jesus nut that had let go. The term Jesus nut is a colloquial term for the mechanism that holds the rotor blades onto the mast. In some helicopters, this is literally a single specialized nut that holds that mechanism together. If that single nut fails in flight, you're about to go meet Jesus. So was that nut or its counterpart mechanism responsible for this failure? The answer is likely not, as that would have resulted in the main rotors detaching from the transmission. People likely saw the low resolution footage of the rotor blades detached from the helicopter without noting that the main transmission was still attached to the blades. Some of the video that was previously released was also re-released with audio. This audio provides some very interesting information, but first we're going to need to learn a little bit about the blade passing frequency. To produce lift, a helicopter's rotor system needs to rotate at a nominal speed that we measure in revolutions per minute. For the Bell 206, this nominal speed is around 395 RPMs. This is directly related to the blade passing frequency, which counts how many times a blade passes by a single point per second. This is measured in hertz. To calculate the nominal blade passing frequency, you take the nominal RPM, divide it by 60 seconds, and then multiply by the number of blades. For the Bell 206, its nominal RPM is 395, and it has 2 blades on the rotors. That means every second, a blade will pass by a single point 13.16 times. Put another way, if the rotor blades were hitting something stationary, we'd expect to hear 13.16 hits per second. In the video, you can hear several loud banging noises, which we can count to get the approximate RPM. By my count, we hear 12 hits over 1.86 seconds peak to peak. That amounts to about 5.91 hertz. To convert that to RPM, we divide by the number of blades and then multiply by 60 seconds. That's about 177 RPM. just under half of the nominal RPM for the Bell 206. Put another way, if that's the sound of the main rotor blades hitting the back of the helicopter, then that means only one of the two blades was actually impacting something. Did one of the blades break so it could no longer hit the tail a second time? Was there a catastrophic control failure that caused one of the rotor blades to pitch in the wrong direction? Or maybe the rotors just lost half their rotational speed on the first impact. The NTSB report also included a note about a rapid change in altitude right before the breakup. Remember from my previous video when I noted that one of the possible causes of mast bumping is rapid control movement. That's the same kind of control movement that could cause the helicopter to climb rapidly. There were reports of people seeing a large flock of birds in the area at the time. Rapid control movements to avoid a bird strike could explain that. However, the NTSB report doesn't include anything about birds, meaning they probably weren't able to corroborate that. With strong gusting winds, it is possible the helicopter is getting thrown around with the weather. Highly turbulent air can definitely cause or contribute to mast bumping. But mast bumping isn't the only theory, especially when you consider how many hours were on this airframe. Did the tail boom snap in flight, causing it to hit the main rotors? Or perhaps the roof beam structure failed, causing the main rotors to tilt and impact the tail boom? It becomes a chicken and an egg problem. We know what's broken, but what broke first? There's even been some speculation that the transmission might have seized up. With the amount of torque from the spinning rotor mass, it's entirely possible that the entire assembly wrenched itself loose of the helicopter's roof. One interesting development is that helicopter tour company is shutting down its operations. That information came on the heel of the NTSB announcing that they were looking into the license and safety record of the operator. That news sounds a lot more ominous than it really is. After every accident, the NTSB looks into every detail of the organization, including their safety and maintenance records. That's not necessarily specific to this tour operator. However, this tour operator also fired their director after they agreed to voluntarily shut down operations while the investigation took place. That's so shady that the FAA issued an emergency order to ground the company. Since my last video on the subject, I've had several groups and organizations reach out to me to tell me all kinds of details about the New York helicopter operator situation. Many organizations have stated concerns about the safety of these helicopters. It's enough that I personally wouldn't take a New York City helicopter tour, at least not until the NTSB has done their investigation and new safety measures are in place. These preliminary NTSB reports don't provide any conclusions, but are a way for the NTSB to communicate what evidence they have available to them. We expect the full NTSB report to be out in the next year to 18 months.